You're listening to Crazy Shit in Real Estate. You'll be amazed at all these wild but true situations that others have found themselves in. Because on this show, you'll hear uncensored, unbelievable stories from the world of real estate. I'm Leigh Brown. Let's dive right in.
I'm Leigh Brown. This is Crazy Shit in Real Estate, and I've got a repeat guest for you today. We've got George S. Wonica from Staten Island, New York. If you did not catch George the first time around, go back into the archives. We'll have a link here for you to go hear episode 1. But he's back to talk about family business and estates. It's very important information and a pretty honest conversation, so I hope you'll enjoy it, and I'll see you on the other side.
Hello, la, la, la.
Are you so excited to be a second-time guest on the show?
I'm a two-time, yes. So
I don't know
I
if
have to,
anything.
I had to have the virtual background because otherwise you're going to see my bed behind me and that kind of stuff. And my wife might not like it when she sees it on YouTube. I'm looking at my bed on YouTube. Like, it's going to be every place. I'm like, well, I got the virtual background. I got it. Don't worry.
Your wife does not sound like that. That's a very unfair characterization of that.
No, it absolutely is not. You should have seen. So yesterday we go into the city and we were going to get our hearts checked and stuff like that, just to make sure everything is everything. So we're doing something. I don't remember what the hell we were doing. And I'm like, oh, I was driving and I was talking to Bob and I was talking to like 15 people, texting people. I think I even texted you at one point. I'm like, I'm driving. I can't see what you sent me or what it was about.
That's right. But I could tell you were driving and talking to text, though. So to be fair, you weren't looking, you were talking.
Exactly. And she goes, she goes, could you just concentrate on the road? I'm going, this is how I multitask and I get things done. I'm like, she goes, but you got to concentrate. I go, 10 and 2. Got to have your hands at 10 and 2. And so.
What just happened to your virtual background? You turned into
a
new character. Hang on a minute. That's serious looking. You just changed altogether. I think there's.
What the heck? I mean, I know I'm Polish. I don't have any Italian in me, but holy cow, what the hell happened?
I don't know. Either you went into a really dark corner or,
I went out and I came back. I don't know what the hell happened. I tell you, for some reason. And
you did go to Florida recently, so that could have been your Florida tan.
That would have been a hell of a Florida virtual background still loading.
And now you're frozen. This is so weird. Although you made fun of Laura, see, if you hadn't made fun of your wife, this wouldn't be happening. So this is karma.
So the funny half of this, what the hell is going on here?
I don't know, but never make fun of your wife. Don't you know? You put away.
My wife, see, you know what the problem is? My wife is the one that has the technological problems 95% of the time.
So are you on her computer?
No, I'm on my computer. This happens.
And now you've turned into a Antarctic Swedish guy.
I turned into Casper the Ghost.
Oh, Casper! Young people don't know what that means, George.
I know, but
that's a dated reference.
Yeah, it's true. What in the blue hell is going on here?
I've never seen this happen before.
This has happened to me where I freeze when I'm teaching on like multiple times, and I don't understand the reason why.
Is this to make your students stay attention and stay awake because they don't know what color you're going to be?
I make them stay awake a lot of different reasons.
I mean, as they say now, Snow White is sand beige, and so I guess we'll just have the Dark George, Casper George. There was a Peach George there for a minute.
Yeah,
You're like the whole 64 box of Crayolas. You are fair housing. You're everybody in one person.
Everybody in one person is great.
So did you see the big news this morning from NAR? They've eliminated 61 staff positions.
No, I didn't even look at that. Not yet.
And the CEO says it's an effort to cut costs. But then I heard from a source that the 61 people that got let go don't know yet who got let go. So apparently the news before they alerted people, which is pretty bad.
Oh, that's always nice.
I know. If you're a staff member, how diminishing that is. So if you're an NAR staffer who watches this, we love you guys. I don't know what happened, but I would have told you before the press got it. Holy crap.
I'm not understanding some of the stuff, but after a while, in my local market, I have somebody who is, granted, we are
There you went.
I didn't touch a damn thing. I'm just saying. I seriously didn't touch a damn thing.
And this is where the audience needs to be adding into the comments. Is this George that is having the problem, or is this the internet? Is this the second time guest spooking? Because I've had other
it has to
second
be
time
what it
guests.
is. This is like, yo, we didn't want him anyway. Like, why did you have this?
Oh, for the record, Dustin has only been on the show one time, so you've now outranked Dustin. I just want you to
I've beat Dustin. Oh man, I am clipping this part, and I'm saying I have more times on this podcast than Dustin. By the way,
the massive agent, does that make you the more massive agent?
No, that just makes me the realest guy in the room. That's all that makes me.
Dustin, we love you.
I said to him, the last time I was speaking to him, I go, "You've had people on twice, but you ain't had me on once. What's up with that?"
Have you not been on Massive Agent?
I have not been on Massive Agent podcast. So anybody that watches this, you need to inundate Dustin Brom at Massive Agent. Why are we even giving him this platform at this point?
I don't know, because you've never been on the show, but I have. I've been on his show, so I've been a guest.
Yes, you have to inundate him and say, "We want George. What are you waiting for?"
And we'll also point out, all joking aside, it is a really good podcast.
It is good. It is very good.
One that Dustin tries hard to stay pure and clean, but his potty mouth takes over, and so he can't help it.
Yeah, but I put Dustin to shame with my potty mouth. So
that's because you're from New York, and one day when Laura gets to have a North Carolina residence, you'll have to act less Staten Island-y and more North Carolina-y. Staten Island is better than Long Island. I'll just go ahead and throw that out there.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment.
All right. So for all the people who don't know who you are, the regulars, they remember you. They've seen you. For anybody that doesn't, the link to George's other episode is right over here. So go click on it. Tell our listeners who you are, where you're located, all those little fun bits, how long you've been in real estate. What should they know about George S. Wonica?
Sure. So obviously, my name is George S. Wonica. I am a local realtor, local appraiser. I did have a mortgage broker's license here in Staten Island, New York. I am now getting into professional speaking, thanks to my colleague over here. Hopefully very shortly. So, hey, reach out to me at georgeswonica.com if you want to actually have me speak at any of your events. But I digress. I've been a local realtor for 32 plus years. I came into this business at 18 years old, came into a family business, which is obviously one of the things that we're here to talk about today, and learned a lot. And I kind of feel like I'm sometimes the bridge, so to speak, between old school and new school. And quite frankly, sometimes we like to have the hard conversations because nobody wants to have those hard conversations. But I have my own podcast, also called the Gripe Session Podcast. I am an agent with Real Brokerage as well, which is a virtual company. For the longest time, I was with my dad's company at Wonica Realtors and just recently left, which was obviously one of the reasons we're going to have a conversation today. And pleasure to be back for the second time on this podcast.
Well, I'm glad you're here. And it is interesting because in real estate, there are so many family businesses out there. I mean, I got in with my dad. You got in with your dad. There's husband and wife teams, which will never be in my house and probably never in yours. There's all these iterations. There's siblings that work together. And sometimes it works perfectly forever. And sometimes it doesn't. And so, of course, you're in a unique situation where you separated from the family business, but you have, of course, maintained the family relationships, which is a pretty interesting line to walk. And I want you to start by telling people what it's like to work with your family.
Sure. So, the funny thing was I actually met my wife in the office. So, that's actually a funny thing. And then she flew out of there very, very quickly, but, that's not true. She worked there for a very long time, which was actually difficult to sometimes navigate. But, as far as getting into the family business, I was in college and went to St. John's University, and real estate was not what I said I wanted to do. It was something that I knew was there, and was going to do while I was in college, while I was going to do it part-time. And I love doing that part-time because the people who have been in this business for an extended period of time know there is no such thing as part-time. But I was going to school in the morning, going completely dressed, leaving school, driving right to the office and working till 10 o'clock at night, going from there. Back when I started doing this part time, I had made, I think it was close to anywhere between $60,000 to $70,000 my very, very first year because I was hustling. I was doing everything that we, as the previous generation, tells the younger generation to do: hustle, grind, and go from there.
Knock on doors, make phone
Knock on-
calls, do flyers.
do it all, right? And I got halfway through college and said, this is what I want to do because I'm making pretty good money part time. What can I do full time? Now, we're also, again, talking 32 years ago. So, one of the things that I would continuously do because I was in a family business is go out with different agents at any given point from a mentor perspective. And I was listening to one of your podcasts earlier, and we were talking about, or you were talking with your guest about, is this is the only profession where you don't have to have a mentor if you don't want a mentor. But it was the best thing for me because all I did was I took a little bit from each one of the agents. By the way, was not going out with my father at the time, was going out with different agents, grabbing what I thought was the best parts of what they did, rolling it together and throwing my personality into it. And that's how I sold. Um, Once I got out of college, this was what I went full board into. This business has been very good to me. It's been very good to my family. There are sacrifices though. When you're in a family business, while you don't want to talk about the business, it just comes up.
All the time.
It comes up all the time. And sometimes it's challenging. There were many a times when, as I started gaining that experience and being in this business for an extended period of time, the conversations started getting more and more challenging and the arguments getting more and more challenging. But for the very longest time, my dad and I had a very different type of relationship where him and I could go into a room and just sound off like two bulls in a china shop. Shocking, I know. And walk out and go have lunch like nothing happened for the longest time. And people look at it and go, you guys are out of your mind. I'm like, well, that's besides the point. So it's definitely was very challenging. It is very challenging. And then it gets more challenging as you move forward from a timing perspective, right?
So when you decided to separate,
Sure.
how did you manage to not lose your dad? Because obviously the dad part matters a lot more than George Wonica, senior real estate pro. How in the world do you navigate that when obviously your dad is so proud of you and he loves that you're successful, and that's part of the challenge of the whole separation piece? How did you navigate that for somebody? And by the way, if you're watching or listening to this, you might be trying to navigate this relationship with your best friend or with a broker that has been a parent figure to you. It's not always just father son, but separating brokerage is hard no matter how you shake it.
Yeah. So in full transparency, it was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my entire life. 32 years in one place. Not only that, but 32 years with family. But this was a normal conversation that would continue to come up. Both of my parents are getting up there in years, and I have empathy for that. I have empathy for the fact that my dad, for lack of a better term, has always been an alpha dog, and I get that and understand that. And I've never, ever, ever, ever used the word retire to
That's
any of them because, quite frankly, in my opinion, you retire from something that you don't love to do. And I know that my dad loves this business. Okay. I've watched people retire and then a certain amount of time later, they have medical episodes, and it happened to my own father-in-law. So I never said I don't want you around. I never said I wouldn't want you to still come around. I'd want that experience. But what was starting to transpire was we were arguing about small things that in the past would not be arguments because it was more of a, this is my thing. This is not your thing. I'll do what I want kind of scenario. Meanwhile, I'm going to be around for the next, good Lord willing, 20 plus years or 25 years to continue what you've started. Um, they've also they had health issues also as well. So I'm thinking about my future of where we have to go from a company perspective because this business is always changing. My dad, up to a few years ago, was always at the forefront of some of this change. But now, as it's starting to come even more and quicker, there's a slowness to react.
Right.
And that's where a lot of our arguments started to come from and or disagreements. As far as how did I manage that scenario? Well, as I had said earlier, this was constant communication, was constant conversation. Was conversation of what do I have to do to show you that I can do this and that I'm ready to do this? And we'd come up with 15 different options. And when each one of those options was negated, thrown away, pushed aside, I have to sit there and go, okay, well, I can't wait for, God forbid, something to happen to you because then it's, I have other siblings that are in the business as well. Now I'm going to be the idiot because I walked away from a conversation that you've never put anything down. You've never put in a succession plan. You've never done any of this other kind of stuff. And these were constant conversations over years. And when I finally hit 50, and yes, I'm 50, there's some gray hair in here, which I gotta go get a haircut later. That was I didn't tell anybody, didn't tell my wife, didn't put up a deadline on it, didn't say, this is it. Went to try to have a conversation after I turned 50, didn't want to talk about it. We've talked about this ad nauseum, there's nothing to talk about. Okay, fine, it's time for me to go then. Because if anybody's ever played cards, there's only so many times that you can have a conversation with nothing happening, expecting a different result, or that you're going to bluff that you're leaving. So at some point, you have to put your cards down and go full house. So that's kind of that's the process that would happen. When I did it, I just went in when nobody was there. So I didn't want to create a
scene.
a circus, a scene, whatever it happens to be with people in the office. Went in late at night, took all of my stuff out, and went from there. Then I guess the scene happened the next day. But the fact remains is for a couple weeks, did not even want to talk, didn't talk to me, and that kind of stuff, which I kind of expected was going to happen because it was very, very, it was just boom, that was it. And then bit by bit, I kept saying, well, I don't have a problem. I'm not the one. You've both taught me everything I know, created opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. Conversations that you don't want to have need to be had. And this goes for a lot of people. Like I tell everybody, I'm not special. I know other people go through this. I know other families go through this where even setting up estates, that's a whole separate issue. They don't want their kids to know anything. And now the kids who sometimes don't get along are going like this because you never set things in place moving forward. So, for me, it came down to a point where prior to me leaving, I wasn't sleeping, was stressed out of my rear end. And it started to become a whole conversation because, my dad is again, still older, has had some medical issues recently. And all of this stuff as a kid who's been doing this for as long as I've been doing it is now fresh in my head. And it's like, now all of this is running through my head. What happens if this is going on? I still have a family that I have to support. I have 2 kids in college right now. I still have a business that I want to do. I have things that I want to do. And I've got all of this keeping me away from what I'm going to do. So when there's no clarity, it became time for me. It's like, okay, well, then I'm going to go do what I have to do and go from there. And it's been difficult trying to walk that line because I've found that everybody wants to hear like this gossip. Oh, did you guys get into a big fight and a big brawl and that? No,
No.
they didn't get no big fight or a big brawl. It just came down to you're not ready to move over. I don't want you to leave, but let me show you that I can do this. And I kind of was running a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but then it started to become every decision I had to get papal dispensation, for lack of a better term, on. And it's like, was it a problem? No. Why didn't you tell me it? Because it was taken care of. Why do I need to have a 30-minute conversation with you about something that is not a problem and was already taken care of? So it starts to develop that other aspect. Try to give 15,000 options. And as the expression goes, I understand about and have empathy for the people that came before us, and that it feels like they're being losing stuff, but it's not losing stuff. It's having the next generation succeed in the things you want to build. I mean, I've had attorneys come to me and say, and other people say, I would think that they would love the fact that somebody else is coming in and wanting to take over. Oh, not necessarily.
I mean, look at it like Congress. The only reason a 50-year-old looks like a baby in the Congress is because you have 90-year-olds that aren't willing to release the decision making to the next generation. And it's not that they're not valuable anymore, but there comes a time when you do need to turn it over. A turnover is not bad. And I think that's the challenge we see in the business. We've had very little talk about succession planning and how do you do it in a way that honors the generation that came before, but lets the next generation stretch their wings and create some new spaces and new ideas. And is that how the entire profession of the trade association got so troubled, is because they refused to allow new ideas and the next generation into the room in a way that was meaningful, not just letting young people in by virtue of their age, but you earned the ability to make sure that the Wonica name continues well. And nobody faults your dad for not wanting to step back. But at a certain point, we all have to take an internal look and say, okay, maybe, just maybe, I don't have to be in charge of everything anymore.
Mhm.
Because the price to be paid for not stepping aside is potentially huge. You guys are the lucky ones that you were able to keep pushing until the communication happened again so that Thanksgiving could happen and Christmas could happen. Not everybody has that kind of resilience.
So if you're in real estate and you're listening to this podcast or watching it and thinking, man, I need some more Leigh Brown answers in my life. Well, guess what, friends? I have a new program that is launching right now called Answers.Real Estate, where I will give you every bit of insight I have to help you grow your real estate business, help you better respond to consumers, to provide a more excellent real estate experience so that the next time you land on crazy shit in real estate, you'll have a better solution to whatever you ran into. Answers.Real Estate. There are monthly plans available. You will love it. Get your coaching. Sign up with me today.
So what would you say in the process? What did you learn about yourself that you see room for growth or that you were proud of yourself in?
I think that, so as far as room for growth, my motto for years has always been, if I'm a little bit better than I was yesterday, today was a good day, right? Whether it means working out and dropping some of the weight that I've been having on me that I've had to get off a little bit, whether it means hitting certain goals, whether it means trying to change the way that I am with people sometimes. And I mean, as far as What was your second part of that question?
I mean, did you see anything in yourself that you were proud of yourself for, that you said, "Oh, I did this well"? What did you do well in
So,
the process?
I mean, to me, probably the one thing that I thought I kind of did well was, if I had to pat myself on the shoulder, would be actually have the cojones to get up and walk and go from there, because there's part of me that thinks that they thought that I would never walk, because I've been talking about it for years, of walking and walking and walking and walking. Now, and while I put that arbitrary 50-year-old, when I hit 50, either this is happening or this is not happening date in there, I personally think that they never thought that I was going to go and do it and go from there and keep with it, mind you. I mean, this was back in October of 2024, and we're getting ready to hit into April already. So I think that the combination of those two things, there's times that people say, well, you think you know everything. No, I don't. I listen to your podcast. I listen to Dustin's podcast. I listen to so many podcasts on a daily basis. And people go, well, why you got to listen to podcasts for? And I go, because I want to learn stuff that I don't know. It goes back to the same expression that I've heard 100 million times. If you're the smartest person in the room, get the hell out of that room. Get into a different room where you're the dumbest, so you can learn and you can grow from that kind of stuff. Like, there are things that I want to do in my life. Well, how do I get to that point? Well, I got to talk to other successful people. How did you get there? What did you do? Whose brain do you pick? Who's willing to allow their brain to be picked and call
Yeah.
you back when you ask them questions on, how do I get established as a professional speaker? And so that was a shot, but I'll throw a blanketed shot.
You don't have to call names, because
I never call the name, but
they can guess names in the comments. They can guess who's not talking.
I'm just saying. So the people that are willing, and by the way, there are people willing to help. Is a perfect example.
They love it. I mean, your dad is one of those people who spent his life volunteering, loves helping, and knows more about real estate than 99.9% of realtors. But his level of knowledge doesn't make your knowledge less valuable. And there's a space for both, but you grow by putting people in the room that can teach you something, and that's not a bad thing. And I'll just point out, like, the ability to say to your dad, I can't keep doing the same thing over and over. Something has to change, is the same conversation we have with home sellers, to say to them, I know you want these dollars, but if we don't do X, Y, and Z, we're not going to get these dollars. And if the point comes when you can't listen to each other, you go your separate way. And then we sometimes see another agent walk in and the seller listens to them and does everything, and then it sells, and we take it personally. But sometimes they just couldn't hear us because we didn't walk away. It totally changes the conversation. And I'm sitting here thinking about all the agents out there, and you know who you are. If you reached out to me and sent me private messages and said, I really want to leave my brokerage and I want to do my own thing, and I don't know how to leave, because you sit over here in a quagmire. Sometimes you just have to go do it and learn as you go. So when you left and changed into a virtual brokerage that's wildly different than the traditional brokerage you'd spent your whole career in, what was the hardest transition for you?
Trying to let people know that I am doing my own thing now and not have it adversely affect my father or my dad's company, because they always know it was him and I. And doing everything in my power not to put him or the company in a bad light, regardless of whatever anybody else in my family is saying, and potentially about me as well. That has probably been the most difficult, to a point where I've literally had to, in some cases with people, had to explain the reasons why, and the fact that it became time for me to have to move on. If, like I said, not wanting to kick him out, that was never the point, but it was more of, we've got to get tighter. We've got to get, more adverse to doing new things, especially with the knowledge that we have, there's more opportunities because the business model is changing, or has changed already. So that was kind of the more difficult part of it because again, we know all the same people. We know the attorneys, we know the judges, we know all of that kind of stuff. So, to have some of those conversations with people and have to walk that tightrope because again, it's my father. I love him. My family, I love them. Some of them I'm not necessarily agreeing with on a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, they're still my family. But at the end of the day and this I think goes for the entire industry, not necessarily family, we have to become more accountable as real estate professionals with agents, right? Agents, brokers, people like to sometimes think, well, the agent should be, accountable to the broker. Well, the broker is also supposed to be accountable to the agent as well, because if they're not just giving them anything except for a high commission, what are we not being accountable for each other for? And that goes with partnerships, whether it be family or anything else. A lot of the problems nowadays that I personally see is that agents want everything, right? We want our associations to be accountable, which, by the way, I agree with, right? I'm paying this money in dues, but nobody's accountable. I agree. But that accountability goes both ways. So we can't ask for the same stuff and then say, oh, I want this glorified type of commission split, but I don't know anything and I want you to teach me everything and go from there. Like, wait a second. That doesn't add up. So it doesn't add up in business. It doesn't add up in a brokerage. It doesn't add up in a partnership. It doesn't add up even in family business. If
Yeah,
there's
but look,
somebody
it's
that
no
is,
different than the argument that's coming up in every legislature, again, which happens all the time. Our state, North Carolina, is doing it right now. This lady introduced a bill for $22 an hour minimum wage, which means she would decimate the beginning job industry and cut people's hours, and people don't think their way through the consequences. But basically, they want to say, I need to have everything I want from you because, which is the same thing that happens in brokerages. I want everything because I'm here and I'm amazing. Well, but are you amazing? Are you low skill that needs to grow? And you're not supposed to want to stay in that job forever. And a brokerage may be a forever fit and it may not be, but if you don't know everything, shouldn't you have to pay your dues? We used to pay our dues. I did. You did.
oh, that,
With our dad
and
through
that's
old school.
exactly. I mean, and that's the other half of it. It's like, so if somebody doesn't like their brokerage and they go in and they're going to go interview other brokers, and one broker says to them, okay, I can pay you that. Just show me your W-2 over the last 2 years. That's personal. You mean me paying you that money? That's personal to me too. Because that's money now out of my pocket, out of my business. So why is it good for you to say that it's okay, but that's not good for me to say? So maybe
Well,
that doesn't work. But the problem is not, the problem is, goes back to the same word. It comes back to accountability. Everything's about accountability. And everybody wants it. The problem is everybody talks about it, but nobody actually wants to be accountable.
no, they want it for
That's the,
somebody else. They want somebody else to be held
yes.
accountable, but not themselves. But on that money side, if an agent comes to my firm and the first thing out of their mouth is splits and money, I don't want them because that
No.
tells me they've lost sight of how do you provide a great experience to the consumer you serve. The money will figure itself out. But if you aren't providing a great level of service and you're not hungry to learn, I can't deal with that here because if somebody comes in and money's the number one goal, we know what corners they're going to cut. You and I have seen it
100%.
for years.
Yeah. And going back to you're talking about the minimum wage going up. At the end
It
of the
won't
day,
happen, by the way. Luckily, our legislature will shoot that down, but the very proposal makes me mad.
well, listen, it makes me mad as well. And I have young kids that are going to start off going at minimum wage. But to me, the whole point of minimum wage is this is the bottom. This is where you are. You want to make more money? Show them you're worth more money. Explain to them why you're worth more money. Show them what your work ethic is. Show them that you come in when you're sick. Show them all of this other kind of stuff. And then guess what? You know what's going to happen? They're going to say they're worth more money because they are valuable to me as a business, and I don't want to lose them and have to go deal with the next schmuck.
So that's like with my kids, our kids are about the same age group, and both of mine are out of high school, and all their friends were talking about that email that Elon Musk sent out that said, "Tell me the 5 things you did this week." And my kids were watching all these little influencers. "Oh, it's not fair. I shouldn't have to do this." And I said, "Look, if you get that email, sit down and break out 20 things you did this week, because that's your chance for a promotion. You should look at this and say, oh, you want to know what I did? Well, let me tell you, boom, 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 boom." But if you're the one that says, "No, I am not. I am too valuable to answer that," you are absolutely the one we want to get rid of. I'm still amazed that this generation did not see the wild opportunity they were given by that email. I mean, what an opportunity to shine. We should all be looking for that. I told my kids, I'm like, I don't want to hear nothing from you. If you can't tell me all the things you did, then you are not valuable to that employer. So change the game.
So I'm smiling about this because
Did you tell your kids that too?
no.
But you
Well, I
will.
mean, my kids know about it, but I will. But so prior to me leaving, we were having a lot of disagreements on certain members and of the family and the things that we do, right? So what I did was I made up took one sheet, broke it in half, and put all the things I did on one side and all the things somebody else did on the other side. And all I did was I handed it to them, to my mother and my father, and said, "Is this accurate?"
Oh,
They said yes. And I go, "So what are we talking about? What are we talking about?
fake blank.
Like
That's where it
what is
gets
the?"
all sticky again.
Well, but and again, that goes back to it. It's like if you don't want to deal with it, quite honestly, that's part of the problem. Because you don't want to be accountable to deal with the problems that are there. You don't see this. I do. You acknowledge everything that I put down on here. So what are we talking? What are we having what is this question about? At some point, you have to take the family out of the conversation and just sit back and go, if a regular person brought you this and they were working for you, what are you going to do?
Well, and again, it goes back to how real estate works. If you were listing a family member's house, you are not helping them if you don't say, we're going to have to pull this wallpaper. We're going to have to trim the shrubs. You're going to have to clean it and declutter it. Then they get harmed because you can't be honest with them. And that's the same thing here. It's a matter of honesty that doesn't destroy relationships. And sometimes you just have to go 2 different pathways, but you never know. One day the pathways might come back together. And that's part of the reason to keep the relationships as healthy as you can, and understand that the people and the business are actually 2 separate things, even though it does get messy in real estate.
And listen, no matter what it is, conversation comes up. When you're out to dinner, you're out at a ball game, you're playing golf, you're doing the handful of things that we all go ahead and do. Heck, even when I'm out with my wife and having dinner with my wife, there is no way that business at some point doesn't come up. Why you talk about your day? Things happen.
Right.
So that's always going to creep its way in as much as we try to keep it out. And trust me, we've tried to keep it out for years with the kids. Like, we are not talking anything about the business today. And hour later, business is coming up. So it's just a natural progression. And yes, there was always some good times and some good stuff that went on. There was some bad stuff that went on as well. It's knowing the difference between the two of them and saying, okay, where is the future of this? I've said for numerous types of situations, which makes zero sense to me, but we do a lot of estate work. Myself and my dad do a lot of estate work, right? Between the appraisals and then the listings on those estates. We have watched in my 32 years and in his 50 years of doing this, we have watched so many families get broken up because nobody sat down, nobody had a conversation, nobody said this is what's going to go down. Nobody said any of that stuff. Okay. Even after when it was getting close and it was just too late at that point. Okay. When I've seen the same stuff go on, I've legitimately said to my people, my parents, I'm like, I said, I can't believe that we've watched this go on with other families for years. And we're making the same mistakes And you're the smartest people I know. You've bought real estate. You've showed us how to buy real estate and become investors and to do all those things and the positives of owning real estate. This business has been very good to me and you've educated us in so much. But in the same breath as the education that you've done, how are we going down the same path as a lot of these other families that we've watched? You would think that we're not going to make those same mistakes that everybody else make, but we're going right down that line. So, you know, at times I do understand the, not wanting to have those conversations, but just like I've told my kids, there is going to be a point that I am not here. Am I looking forward to it? No. I want to be here as long as possible. Why am I working out and trying to watch what I eat now? Because I want to be able to do certain things with my son. I want to be able to go to Mets fantasy camp with my son at some point, which is going to be a long time going away, but that's a whole other conversation. At the end of the day, it's those experiences that I want to be able to have. And I know based on family history that I've got to stay a certain way. I've got to stay slim. I've got to say all that other kind of stuff because of the things that run in my family. So I'm trying to see what's going on in the past and not repeat the same problems. So
then, considering all the estates you've helped and considering this pathway that you're working through in the separation of the family business,
sure.
what's the one thing you wish other real estate brokers would tell their sphere of influence, their people, their clients, their Facebook audience? What's the one thing you wish they would tell people based on everything you've learned that we've talked about today?
Based on everything, what's the one thing
that we've talked about today? Not everything you've learned, that's way too many angles. Based on estates and succession planning and offices, if they walk away from this episode remembering there's one thing they got to tell people about, what's the one thing?
Try to get everything that you do in writing, be signed, have these conversations about succession plans. What happens if, unfortunately, I've been and this is probably why a lot of this had been on my mind for an extended period of time. I had been around a lot of people that we don't know when our clock is up, for lack of a better term, and when the good Lord calls us. That's one appointment that none of us can be late for or can push off. When it's our time, it's our time. And if you're not preparing yourself, your family for that point, my own family is a perfect example. I'm trying to make sure, my kids are better than me. That's what I want as a parent, that you're a better person than me. You've learned everything that I've tried to show you. And again, work it out. Be accountable to your brothers and your sisters. At some point, there's going to be somebody that's going to have to be in charge, because trying to have a three-headed monster to be in charge of one thing does not work. Somebody is not going to agree. And by the way, it is a perfect example. In my scenario, because I'm going to use my family, I have 3 kids. I have 2 girls and a son. When that time happens for me and my wife, it might not be 3 people that are decision makers.
Mm-hmm.
It might be 6, because they're all going to have hopefully significant others that are all going to have potentially a conversation about what goes on. So if myself and my wife don't set it up the way that we set it up, where we can sit back and go, here's how this is going to work. This is who's going to be in charge of doing that. This is what they're going to do in order to do that. This is going to be the responsible person. Then it's on me. It's on us. Because I want my kids to be able to all get along and hang out. My kids love each other.
Exactly.
They're great. I don't want this to be a albatross that starts family breakup, at least in my section. So that would be the one thing that I would do, not only to make sure that you have wills and everything is spelled out for people, but make sure you're letting your family know this is what happens if. Here's where everything is. How many families do we talk to that they don't know where anything is, and they're going through old shoe boxes and records and all that other kind of stuff, and they don't, because they don't know where it is, and it delays processes. So let people know where things are. It has nothing to do with people don't want you around. And I have to say that because I want my parents around as long as humanly possible. But these are conversations and things that you need to have before something happens, because when that thing happens, you've got added stress now on that whole situation. You've got to set up other things. And things fester. You don't want
So
that to
it's all about preserving the relationship. It's not the money. It's not the estate itself. It's the relationships that you preserve by putting it in writing. And that's brokerages too. So if you're an agent, when you join a brokerage, you should have a job description there of what you're going to do. And the broker should have something written down for what they're going to provide to you. Same thing in an estate, same thing with siblings. And always remembering that when something's in writing, it diffuses things so much faster than if you're operating on word of mouth. So, George, if somebody wants to find you and hear about the class that you put together to talk about succession planning and family businesses, or to talk about estates, or just to ask about Staten Island real estate, what's the best way for them to find you?
So as far as anybody wants to hear about the program, that would be my website, which is georgeswonica.com. That's my speaking website. If anybody wants to follow me on social media, I am on Instagram, TikTok at the Real GS Wonica. I have a YouTube page, Living in Staten Island. I'm on pretty much every social media. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. Quite frankly, if you can't find me, you ain't trying hard enough. You can't find me. You ain't trying hard enough. So all of my information is out there, or as I like to tell people, GTS me. And if people don't know what GTS means, is Google that stuff. I gotta keep it clean because I know Leah yelled at me if I
It's the name of my website.
If I miss some cuss
You
words.
can't say shit here. You can't say it anywhere.
Oh yeah, well then Google that shit. Okay, I use GTS all the time. So I tell my students all the time, I think GTS. They go, "What's GTS?" I'm like, Google that shit.
But it's okay. For those of y'all that are like me, it's DuckDuckGo that shit. So DDGTS.
Yeah, exactly right. So I'm on every social media that's out there currently right now.
And until he and his wife move to the North Carolina coast, you should reach out to them to ask about your Staten Island, New York real estate, and especially if it's a listing, so your people can sell it there and move down here, which is the normal pattern of things. But George, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about what is obviously a hard scenario that doesn't have to be impossible. So thank you for sharing. And we wish you, of course, every success in bringing good messages to other real estate agents and brokers and humans out there.
Thank you. Thanks for having me a second time.
A second time. So say nice things about George in the comments. You can make comments about Dustin too if you want to, since we've mentioned him times. And of course, you can say nice things about George's dad too, because he is a love bug, even though he acts very gruff. It's kind of hilarious. But just remember, all of George's contact information is in the show notes for this episode. So if you're wanting to find out more, you want to ask your own questions, he's very accessible and very glad to help. So thank you for coming back on the show. Everybody hit the bell to subscribe. Here are some other episodes here, and we'll see you next time.
By the way, friends, don't miss my brand new coaching program at answers.realestate, where you can have access to Leigh Brown, submit your questions, have them answered, meet like-minded professionals, have an entire library to help you build your business no matter what happens in the market. Get signed up today. I promise you'll be glad you did. As always, I'm so super thrilled that you joined in for more crazy shit. And if you're a realtor, investor, inspector, lender, or just a regular human being who happens to have an unbelievable story that you need to tell the world about, or frankly, you just need to one-up the story you just heard, then make sure to DM me on Instagram at Leigh Thomas Brown, or tweet me at Leigh Brown, or frankly, any social network where you hang out. I'm there. And if you had some fun, then you totally want to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes.